Escalade, Chevy Silverado, and GMC Sierra. This is ABC News. Former NFL quarterback John Elway was reportedly involved in a now fatal golf cart incident in Southern California.
The Riverside County coroner is confirming John Elway's longtime agent and business partner Jeff Spurbeck died on Wednesday morning from his injuries sustained on Saturday evening. Witnesses say Elway was driving the golf cart at the exclusive Madison Club in La Quinta when Spurbeck fell out and hit his head. Allie Simon saw Elway calling 911.
As we were leaving, we heard the ambulance coming in. So it must have been probably 5 minutes.
It wasn't reported to the Riverside County Sheriff's Office until Monday. It's now under investigation. Alex Stone, ABC News.
A Columbia student and pro-Palestinian demonstrator arrested during his citizenship interview 2 weeks ago has been ordered released from detention while his case proceeds. A judge finding Moshe Madawi made substantial claims his detention was in retaliation for his protected speech. I'm Michelle Franz on ABC News.
I'm still going for it, even with higher stroke risk from atrial fibrillation, and a regular heartbeat not caused by a heart valve problem. Over a 3-year study, Eliquis apixaban tablets reduce stroke risk better than warfarin, and over 97% of Eliquis patients did not experience a stroke. A first stroke occurred in 2.9% of warfarin patients versus 2.3% of Eliquis patients.
Don't stop taking prescription Eliquis without asking your doctor. It may increase your stroke risk. Eliquis can cause serious and in rare cases fatal bleeding. Don't take Eliquis if you have an artificial heart valve, abnormal bleeding, or antiphospholipid syndrome. While taking, you may bruise more easily or take longer for bleeding to stop. A spinal injection while on Eliquis increases risk of blood clots, which may cause paralysis, the inability to move. Get medical help right away for unexpected bleeding, unusual bruising, or tingling, numbness, or muscle weakness. Medications such as aspirin products, NSAIDs, SSRIs, SNRIs, and blood thinners may increase bleeding risk. Tell your doctor about all planned medical or dental procedures. Learn more at Eliquis.com or call 1-855-ELIQUIS.
The views and opinions of the following show do not reflect those of WSMN, its owners, and/or associates.
Welcome to the Common Sense Conservatives, a political discussion group about current events and other government-related matters every Wednesday evening from 7 to 8 p.m. Right here on WSMN 1590 AM, WSMN 95.3 FM, and streaming live on wsmn.live. Making sense of the inverted reality we are subject to every day, the Common Sense Conservatives are here to help bring you back to reality. Now, your hosts, Chris Wyatt, Todd McKinley, and John Gorvin.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Common Sense Conservatives right here at WSMN 1590. I'm attempting to bring Tom McKinley in. I had thought I'd done so earlier. There you are.
All right. How do you read me, my friend?
I read you loud and clear.
Good deal. Good deal. I don't know. Is the Colonel going to be on tonight, or is he unavailable?
He is having some shoddy internet service over there on the other side, not just the other side of the globe, but another whole hemisphere. Yeah, he's not getting internet, so he is going to bow out tonight. So, Todd, it's up to you and I to carry the 2-hour show.
Well, I hate to bring it to you, but I'm going to have to bow out real quick. Let me just jump off here. Take care, John. Good luck.
Yeah.
Maybe you could bring
I thought it was on my own. You came in so late. I'm like, I guess I'm opening up alone here. Now what am I going to do?
No. Sorry. I have a few folks here, and I was just outside chit-chatting with them, and I was like, let me run in here and log on real quick. So that was the delay right there.
Yeah, I'm over here. I had to get a new phone, man. I'm sitting over here listening to the show starting up, and I'm still trying to connect my Google and my Facebook and all my other garbage on my phone so I can get stuff done. I'm trying to get stuff done.
You said shirt. I heard shirt.
Shirt.
You did not.
I left my overshirt at home, man. It's just too warm out there, man. It's up like 66 degrees.
Well, I'm saying that the word that you were about to say, you didn't say because you didn't complete it. You stopped before you added the T on there. I think maybe only part of the R made it in. So I think you're good, right?
Yeah, I'm good.
SHI.
If I wasn't recording this, I'd be A-okay.
Right. You corrected it toward an R and added the T. So it was shirt. So there we go.
That's what I heard. I'm with you.
That's right.
So yeah, every once in a while, guys, there's going to be a slip of the tongue. It happens, but it's not like it's the big words. It's not like the big F-bomb or.
No. So no, that would definitely get the show a halt for sure.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure that the FCC would be just jumping down our throats. George would be bringing my phone. Johnny, what's wrong with you?
Didn't you hear what you said? I was
heard
watching.
it.
I was
I wish
watching.
I heard it before I said it.
Right. Oh, I imagine so. No, I get. I get it. I mean, because you got to think. You do. What do you call them? You do social media stuff. You do podcasts.
Yeah.
And so you're on a lot of uncensored platforms. So I get it.
Actually, in all truthfulness, we try to treat it just like we do here.
Oh, I agree. I agree. You
So,
should.
and the
I
reason
agree.
why is because you don't know who's listening, even if it's the internet. I mean, come on, it's ridiculousness out there, man. The stuff that's on the internet, circulating on the internet, stuff I see on Facebook comes across my Facebook feed sometimes, or even my X account. It's tasteless, and you don't know who it's reaching.
Right.
It's
No,
reckless on people's
right.
parts. People are out there; they have families.
Yep.
And I would like to think, at least if I'm only on the internet podcasting, that mom and dad could feel comfortable to turn us on and listen to us in the living room with their kids. They're playing with the toys or whatever, confident that we're not going to be just running off the mouth and saying inappropriate things.
Right. No, absolutely. Okay. Yeah. I'm seeing my text now from the colonel where he had to beg off for the night. Okay. That's all right. Not a problem. I mean, Hickey's probably doing several meet and greets today over there in South Africa where he's at. I know we have Mira here, she and a few other people popping on to the show tonight. But yeah, so the Colonel is still in South Africa. For those of you who live there and watch the show or listen to the show, note the Colonel's still over there. I don't know where he's going to be. I don't know his schedule. I just know he's not here tonight. He's in a bad place as far as internet. But check him out while you're over there. And of course, I'm sure the government, probably knows exactly where he's at, meaning the government of South Africa, for sure.
Keeping tabs. So are you getting comments there? You seeing comments come through, Todd?
Yeah, I see a couple comments just on the stream here.
I got nothing. I got
restream.
absolutely nothing on chats on my end. I'm like, what?
Yeah, I've not checked any of the social media pages at all, but that's okay. Yeah. So, but for the people who do follow the Colonel, he's still in South Africa and will be for about another week or so. I believe that's right, John?
At least another week. I thought maybe up until mid-May, but somewhere like maybe the 12th or something.
Right. Absolutely. Well, yesterday, Trump hit his first 100 days, or rather the second 100 days of the second administration. So what are your thoughts on what kind of grade would you give him if we're talking about maybe A, B, C, D, and F? What kind of grade would you give him?
Oh, God, man, it's an A. I don't know if I would say an absolute. Well, I don't know. Trump just recently signed an executive order for English proficiency for trucking, and that came unexpected. So, yeah, I'd have to say he's at least an A plus. I don't know if I go A plus. I mean, there's got to be some hiccups somewhere, but I'm just trying to think of what they are.
Right. Yeah.
Into it, man.
No one's perfect. No administration is perfect for sure. And but yeah, I would say he's right in the A area. Maybe a flat A minus. I don't know, because obviously not perfect. There was hiccups, and there's still going to be hiccups for sure. But yeah, definitely
a couple quirky things, but
sure
they were just saying stuff, and it seems to have dropped right where it stood. It's not
right. Absolutely. But you think about it from the last 4 years, I mean, it's a stark difference. I mean, you think about this, it's like somebody, you watch them paint a picture every day, and every day it gets, dramatically worse. Like they're using grays and really dark colors, charcoal or something. And they're drawing really ghoulish figures and stuff like that for 4 years. It's really just trolls and things like that. And now all of a sudden, you're opening up that kit, if you will. Now you're seeing all the colors of the rainbow, not to borrow from the woke movement, but all these different colors that are being able to be used, and the vibrant, if you will, colors and prosperity. The greens are green again, men are men and boys are boys and girls are girls, etc. So we're seeing the world as it probably should be, or as it could be, versus what it has been over the past 4 years, which again, somebody painting or drawing just really in those dark colors and just, ghoulish figures. And then it's just really, I don't like it. And now we're seeing what right looks like.
Absolutely. It's starting to come around. He was standing next to Whitmer here earlier, so that might have affected his grade a little bit.
Right. Yeah. That brought him down
himself being around her.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
He had to. He obviously, if he's funding or putting forth some funding for the Air Force Base there in Michigan and or the Air National Guard, I think. And
right.
So yeah, I mean, of course she's going to be standing there, but she was talking to about it in April, and she's at the White House for a private meeting. But to my understanding, she kind of got stuck with a whole bunch of other people for photo ops and stuff. they're like, hey, could you step in here? So I don't know, the way the article read that she was kind of embarrassed about being stuck there, but yeah, she was there at the White House anyway to try to rein in some cash,
Of course.
funding.
Of course. I mean, isn't it funny that you see all these Democrat governors that'll, rail against a Republican administration, but then will go to Washington with their hand out, but won't let their constituents know that they actually snuck away to Washington for a day or two, and as they slink back into their state begging for money. I mean, how many governors go to Washington on a regular basis? It was funny, working there and having access to the president's schedule, and then of course the vice president's schedule, of course. And looking at all the different governors that have come from around the country, basically begging for money or whatever. And I had a curiosity to kind of look at the different states and to see if the major newspapers of those states, if you will, are covering their governor being in Washington or something, or some money that they've secured or whatever. And I've never noticed that there's ever really any coverage of that. You know what I'm saying? So governors can sneak out of their state, no problem, go to Washington, glad hand with Trump, and then go back to Michigan in this case, and you basically badmouth him. No one's gonna, nobody's the wiser. Nobody's the wiser.
Yeah, that's what they like to do. They play the little, well, they call it political theater, right?
Right.
They like to play their little games and stuff, but when it comes time to groveling, that's what they do. They grovel, they get what they need, they go back and start talking tough again.
Oh, absolutely. Because, you put me in the office, to stand up against this guy, but I need this guy to be able to give me money. So that way you'll reelect me or elect me to some other office down the road. And I think she has the eye on the presidency. I think in the next 4 years, I think she'll be one of the Democrats with her name on the ticket for sure. Along with California governor. I think the, Illinois governor will run, Pritzker. So yeah, I think you got at least 3 people right there. Democrat governors that are probably going to throw their hat in the ring for sure.
You think AOC is going to represent her 21%?
I wouldn't put it past somebody like her to run. And then of course, she'll garner some support, a lot of social media stuff, a lot of it be fake and bots, but that'll be besides the point. She'll get a spot on the stage for the DNC for sure, and probably get a cabinet post, which is weird to think somebody like her getting a cabinet post, but it'll be a lower level or something if she gets anything at all. If anybody gets elected as a Democrat, let's say a Democrat becomes president, you're stupid if you put somebody like that in your cabinet. But I don't see anybody being smart enough to say no.
So do you think, well, I've never seen her behind a podium. Do you think when she stands behind the podium, you just see the top of her head and she's like dragging the microphone down behind the podium? And you see her hands flying up in the air every now and again. And
right.
Or do you think she demands a step stool?
Oh, she probably gets a little step stool in there, Oh yeah. Well, it's funny is you had and I'm gonna botch the story. What was it back in the 80s? What was it? 88, I believe it was. It was George H.W. running for president, right? It was against Dukakis in 88, right? Because 92 was Clinton. So 88 running against Dukakis. They were using the Blue Goose, and anybody can look the Blue Goose podiums up that the White House has. And of course, they're pretty tall. So if you're a short person like Dukakis, you need a little step stool or whatever. But that was something that they kind of played with. They didn't give him quite the step stool that he wanted, so it made him look a lot shorter than he really was, or than he wanted to. It's kind of funny.
That is kind of funny. I can see him go, wait, and go grab some books or something. He's like in the library or whatever, bringing out books. Kind of like Zuckerberg sitting on his briefcase.
Yeah.
During congressional hearing.
Right. Well, here's the thought. Now we graded Trump, right? I gave him an A minus. You gave him an A. You didn't specify plus or minus, but Elon Musk at Doge. He's wrapping up his time at Doge here, and of course, President had a cabinet meeting. Of course, here's a quote. This is according to Fox News. It says, "You have been treated unfairly," Trump said to Musk on Wednesday during a cabinet meeting. But the vast majority of people in this country really respect and appreciate you. And this whole room can say that very strongly. It's really been a tremendous help. You opened up a lot of eyes as to what could be done. And we just want to thank you very much. And of course, that was President Trump today in the White House, in the cabinet briefing room right there, which is in the West Wing, steps away from the Oval Office, by the way, right along the Rose Garden. And those words are spoken today to Elon Musk as he's wrapping up his time at Doge. What do you think Elon Musk is going to be? How's he going to be remembered with his role at Doge? And what grade would you give him?
I definitely give him an A. I think he's done a top-notch job. I think he'll be recognized as somebody who accomplished something at Doge. Obviously not by the left, because they'll never recognize any accomplishments on the right. It's amazing for me, as a side note, it's amazing for me to think that this man was the champion of the leftists, so to speak, right? Mr. Electronic Cars or electric cars, and he was kind of a leftist. He wasn't necessarily a liberal. He was a Democrat, and he believed in a lot of things that the Democrats believe in, global
Right.
warming and all that other nonsense. But all of a sudden now, when he kind of centers himself a little bit and he stands up for what's right, he's an evil, evil man, and they
Yeah.
attack him. But
Right.
no, I go with definite A for Elon Musk. I'm really glad he did what he did, and I'm thankful for it.
Right. No, I would agree with you on that one. Yeah. And hopefully at some point, they can actually pass legislation, dealing with the things that was identified by Doge, and be able to kind of line through a lot of these agencies and departments and programs that don't work, the millions upon hundreds of millions of dollars to the tune of billions, once you add it all up. Could be taken away, and that savings go back to the taxpayer, or go to pay down the national debt, or at least not add to it. Hopefully we can get to a point where either we have balanced budgets, or we're being able to pay down the principal on the debt, not just paying on interest. That would be nice to get to that point. It's going to take years of cuts and rolling up the sleeves to get there, but we can, I think.
That's the scary thing right there, Todd, is we got some fantastic people right now in this administration doing a great job. All across the board, I think they're doing good jobs. And I think they're going to make a lot of changes. I think they're going to expose a lot of things. But what happens after 4 years from now when they're all gone? Do we see the government just revert back, and it's kind of like no apologies for it? They just revert back, start stealing from the American people again, and the American people just continue to roll over and take it like they did before? Or do you think there'll be pushback, or do you think we'll actually find other people from this that will step up? And I ask this question as a thought-provoking question for listeners and stuff, because we need to get out there and push it. We can't sit idle. We got to be the people that get out there and push it for this next administration when Trump is done, because this is a starting point. This isn't a finishing point.
Right. Yeah. Well, and here's the scary and dangerous part. You think about this, the MAGA movement, Trump, and of course, you add into that, remnants, say, of the Tea Party movement that stuck around in some ways with people, and now you sparked a wave of people who've never been involved politically. Now all of a sudden they're getting involved heavily, a lot of times in local races and local elections, which is good. But they don't realize that the people that they're going after are people who have been involved doing the same things that they've been doing for years. So instead of actually getting involved, knowing the playing field, if you will, knowing who their allies is going to be, they come in basically with a broadsword and start slashing instead of realizing who's on their side. So that's a danger of this. People that are getting involved, not knowing who the players are their allies. And then all of a sudden, what ends up happening is you end up fighting for votes with like-minded people, and the establishment's allowed to ride the storm out because they have money and they have built-in name recognition. So that's what we're going to have to avoid. So that's the downfall of this moving forward. So people that haven't been involved politically need to pay attention. And then if they're going to become involved, know who's their ally locally and at the state level before you come out with your broadsword. You need to be more surgical, more methodical before we slash everybody to pieces and achieve nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I remember a debate between Obama and McCain. Remember that when
right.
McCain was talking about you can't just keep slashing at it. You got to use a finer point on it. You
Right.
You can't just go at it like that. Of course, Obama had no intention on slashing anything.
No,
He was
no.
Using the talking points.
Right, absolutely. And let's go back to Doge real quick, since we're talking about slashing. There's a number of things that we could certainly get rid of. Say the Federal Department of Education. How many billions of dollars does that suck away from the American taxpayer that could be used at state and local levels to bridge the gap in local areas where you have school departments and school boards that are suffering. that don't have enough to make ends meet, if you will, to be able to fund proper, so have a roof on schools, to be able to stop leaks and things like that. Imagine how far those billions could go at the state and local level. So I'm all for getting rid of the federal Department of Education, just lying through it, period, and basically reallocate those dollars one way back to the local level, or at a minimum, it'd be less of a tax burden on the American people. So that's a big thought. But there are probably programs out there that we may need to look at and say, what would be the repercussion if you line through it? If you slashed it. Are there some things in there that we may want to save or salvage and move somewhere else? Something that's maybe working that the American people need or want?
Absolutely. I got a little background noise coming up here, so you have to bear with me on that one.
I gotcha.
So sometimes it gets a little loud when they're rolling by with the sirens.
Right. I mean, well, you're just down the street there from the fire station, right?
Yeah, I don't think it's too far away. I'm trying to. Yeah, it's not that far away. But yeah, no. I think the biggest thing about the Department of Justice is it's just used to influence policy. It's not really. Right. I mean, they do things like No Child Left Behind. That's been a failed program.
You mean education, right?
I'm sorry, I said Department of Justice. Yeah, Department of Education. That's what
okay. There you go. There you go.
I had Department of Justice on my mind earlier.
Right.
So yeah, Department of Education. Well, with the No Child Left Behind has been a failed policy. Then you had Michelle Obama. Michael.
Right.
Yeah, with the whole thing about nutrition for kids, and they're getting these unripened pears and stuff, and foods that kids don't eat.
Right.
Yeah, okay, so we should be giving them junk food, but still at the same time, give them something they're going to eat, nutritious, but they're going to eat. It shouldn't taste like cardboard.
Right. And to think a kid's going to eat some strange fruit that they probably never even been introduced to at home. Like, it's not going to happen.
Right.
Sorry. Yeah, no, you're absolutely correct. You just because you put into place a program doesn't mean it works. You know what I'm saying? Just because it's been around for years doesn't mean it's working now. It may have started out a great idea initially, worked, responding to problems that you're facing, whatever the case may be. But at some point, you've solved that problem. I hope, right? And then all of a sudden you get these agencies that look for other problems to solve. And so they'll never actually come to a point where they can go to Congress and say, hey, we fulfilled our mission, time to furl the guidon, if you will. And that, to borrow from the military, furl the guidon is a term whenever you're going to mothball a unit, essentially, and you can bring that unit back at a later time. But basically, it's a situation where administratively the government or the army or military can say, we're going to get rid of this for now because we don't need it. Same thing could apply to any executive branch department or agency or office, whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hope that made sense.
It does. But yeah, I like to see the department. I don't know. I think it should revert back to the states. It's gotten to be ridiculousness. It's been a failed project, I guess you might say. It's just never really worked. Department. So I think it's better off with the states. I think the states can do a more accurate job, and they did before the Department of Education. So
right, absolutely. I mean, are we to pretend that there weren't geniuses and and very intelligent people before we had a federal Department of Education that only came along in the 1970s? And mind you, since then, what has happened? Reading, math scores, and so on has went down. Think about this. English is our first language in America. No, we don't have an official language, but English for 90% of households is probably the primary language, or at least it was whenever I was growing up. And here we are. We're amongst the worst nations in the world whenever it comes to English.
Yeah, it is a complicating language, but at the same time, you'd think that if we're going to have 10 years of education in English or something, we got 12, but
Right. And I get it. We're brought up using conversational English, not quite the same as, conjugating verbs and all this stuff, figuring out, what's an adverb? Where should I put this comma? Where's the colon? I get that. But whenever you actually write, I don't know, for people who write, you don't write the way you speak generally, right? People who know how to write. And then, of course, there are other people who just write the way that they speak too. But I always say, if you can communicate effectively, and I understand what you're trying to say, you're good. But at the same time, there's no reason why we should be behind China when it comes to English, for crying out loud.
Yeah, Chinese people speak better English than American people.
I'm just saying, you don't have to be the perfect person whenever it comes to English, scoring 100 on every English test. But for the average China person, Chinaman that's out there, not being racist, but you should be ahead of them in English, for crying out loud.
You would think. You would
Anyway,
think.
yeah, that's my pet peeve.
Yeah, I get that too. I mean, thank God for Grammarly.
Yeah,
I don't like
yeah.
AI, but I like AI.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll run through that every now and then. A little Grammarly or grammar checks, pretty
But
good.
sometimes it screws you up too, man. You're like, I know I'm right. I know I'm right. And Grammarly's over here trying to correct you. You're like, why are you trying to correct me? I know
Yep.
this is right. And of
Right.
course, sometimes I'm adamant I'm right and I'm not. But no, I've
Right.
had times when I'm looking at this and I go, and you're reading something like somebody who's actually a professional in English and stuff when they're writing like a professional article, and you go, see, they did it. They constructed it the same exact way.
Right. Oh yeah. But sometimes if you're writing, let's say, an article, and I published a number of articles, there are times whenever you want to present something, the way it'll flow if somebody's reading it. You know, you're not writing a novel. You know, there's a difference between writing, say, for a newspaper than there is, say, writing a book. That's writing the Odyssey or something like that, or the Iliad. You know, you're not going to write that the same way you're going to write in your local newspaper or an article in a publication. You know, you do write differently for those.
Oh yeah, it depends on what you're doing, right? You're not going to write
Right.
a member of Congress like it's a newspaper article or something, either, right? You're gonna write it differently.
Right. You're gonna make it more personal for sure.
And poignant. Yeah, you're gonna get right to the point. You're not gonna sit there and keep dragging it out about your feelings and your BS and
Right.
and your friend two doors down who is affected by it and other nonsense, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen people send, notes or whatever, and it's like, and I get what they're trying to do, but then they make it like several pages long to get to the point. It's like, put that bluff in there, that bottom line up front. Tell me what this is about. Tell me what you want me to do. Tell me what action that you would find satisfactory given the situation. Don't make me read 7 paragraphs and try to understand it. Let's get to the point up front and go from there.
Yeah, that's it, exactly it. I mean, imagine if you will, if you're a congressional aide and you got 100 letters sitting in front of you, and each one of them are 10, 12, 11, 12 pages long. You're like, what am I going to do with my time?
Like if you're trying to urge, let's say, a legislator to do something, to see something your way, to support something, you're not going to give him the whole piece of legislation. You're going to give him like a 1-pager, maybe 2 paragraphs. That's really solid with a, something that's going to catch their eye up front that makes them want to read the entire memo. Get to the point, 2 paragraphs, maybe 3-4 sentences each, and maybe a little nicety closer, and that's it. Move on.
Get yourself a cliffhanger in there so they're apt to want to call you to get the details. That's what you want, is for them to reach out, say, oh wait, something's going on here.
And you also have to put in there a little bit of what's in it for them. Let's say you represent, I don't know, let's make it up, trucking 2025, and you're a trucking advocacy group, right? And you represent 10,000 truck drivers all up and down the East Coast. There's your selling point. I represent 10,000 drivers or 100,000 drivers. That's how you're going to get them to pay attention to you. Boom.
Oh yeah, numbers count. We've discussed that before. If you don't have the numbers, don't waste your time.
Right.
Numbers count. I mean, if you're all alone and you're writing your local councilman or something, yeah, I could write them. But if you're writing DC or something, make sure that you're part of an organization or something that helps a lot. I've been down there and you see these people down there passing out. They take their literature. They have packets, and they're going to each congressional office and they're dropping off a packet, having a quick conversation. Hey, how you doing? You remember me? I'm Tom. Yada yada yada, and little meets and greets and stuff, but they make sure they got a packet. These people are like with their unions, a teachers union, or whatever unions and stuff, and they got large groups of people that do that. They swarm DC at a certain period of time, and that's what they do. They drop off a small packet, kind of give them a gloss over on it, and of course there's always contact information in the packet. It shows a lot of strength. It shows a lot of unity, and the numbers count. So
right, yeah, absolutely. And then of course, if you can show some historical data. Has this been tried before? If it has, where was it effective? Things like that.
Oh, data is everything in DC. If you don't have the data, it makes a difference. In fact, I was reading American Trucking Association's article they'd written. It was kind of arrogant, but that's exactly what they were saying. They said, whenever there's a fight to be had in trucking, the ATA will be there. Then they wanted to say, we win because we have the data. We win because we have the numbers, and so on and so forth. And there's more to it than just that, but It's the way they wrote it and stuff that it kind of caught my eye. I'm like, wow, that was kind of because they were addressing the smaller organizations and how they were crushing them and stuff. And the way they said it was really kind of just like, wow, okay, I see how you feel about it.
Yeah,
You don't talk about trying to reach out to those smaller organizations. You don't talk about trying to create some sort of alliance or anything with them, or at least some sort of group discussions at times with them or anything like that. No, you just win. I got you. So it's a battle with you. You want to fight with us.
Right. That's true. Yep. And we're talking about different organizations that are generally fighting for the same purposes. You know, what's sad is I equate it to kind of like churches in the South. You know, there's a church on every corner. Nothing wrong with that. But generally, it's like this group over here got mad at that group, and this other church they started a church across the street. You know, and a lot of times advocacy groups are the same way. You know, it's like, well, we're mad at you, so we can't do it this way, and we can't go through the normal channels to make the changes we want. So we're just going to break off and create another group. Now, mind you, what you just done is made the original group weaker, and now you have no real power because you're new, and also at the same time you don't have any numbers.
Yeah.
So, yep.
Yeah, we used to discuss that, man. It's like for trucking advocacy. It's like a church, man. It's exactly what you said.
Right.
You get mad, you decide that you could do it better, and you go out and start your own church, and you decide what the new rules are and what God accepts, and
Right. But what is funny is, you know, they're angry. And then at the same time, they're all competing for the same dollars, same donations, etc. And it's like, there's only so much to go around. And you probably could have secured a lot more money had you had more numbers staying together and working through your differences. Wow. Now people see that you're too divided. Why would I want to give money to one side or the other in an argument? You know, that's the way people will look at it.
Mm-hmm. That's giving into the ego. That's exactly what it is. I give into the ego. I could do it better, or I want to be in charge, or I think I have a better plan. And you're exactly right. Now you just divided the group. You have no unity, and you're all failing together. You're not winning together.
Right. Well, there's I'll use a veteran service organization as an example. You know, I'll just say the American Legion. I'm not attacking anybody, but we have certain groups within our organization who complain about not being able to get certain things done. And it's like, you tell them the process. Here's the process to do it. It may be a little slow, but it can be effective if you want to see it done. But instead, they'll complain about the people who are in charge. It's like, well, you guys don't want to do this and this and this. It's like, there are rules in place. We must follow it. But then they complain and say, well, we're just going to break off and start our own group. And it's like, well, you're going to have to put in place rules to govern yourselves, or else you're not going to be effective anyway. You're not going to be able to do anything without some sort of governing body. And there will be a point whenever you're not going to like the people who get elected to those positions in your new group. And then where are you? You're going to break off again and again and again. You know, work within the system that you have to make things better, to make the changes.
You got to deal with the squirrel went berserk. What was it? The South.
Right. Yeah. The upright. Yeah. Yeah. That's funny. Yeah. The day the squirrel went berserk.
Yeah. Okay. What was his name? Ray Stevens.
Yeah. Ray Stevens. Yeah.
Oh, he was great. He was. I don't know whatever happened to him, but he was excellent back in the day.
Right. Absolutely.
I have been trying to get some chats in here, but yeah, you know, technology. I say it all the time. It keeps whooping my butt, man.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
So let's see. What do we got?
Actually, to have somebody message me right here, somebody we had on the show before, man by the name of David Seal, wants to come on and talk about eminent domain and a few things like that, some updates. So yeah, we'll have him on. He wants to come on in May and talk about that. So I think that'll be good. Yeah, it's got a text message from him. He's one of those citizen legislators, if you will, or advocates. He doesn't work for a lobbying firm. He goes and lobbies, you know, on his own. He brings the issue. He does his own study, brings the data, brings a number of people it'll affect, and at the same time, he brings a number of people that that's backing him in his endeavor, so he can get a lot of things done that way. So people say, well, what can one person do? Well, you look at him. I think there's an example right there that say a lot.
Sorry about that, Echo. I was trying to get myself some chats in here, and I couldn't seem to mute it out.
No problem. Yeah, John's working through a couple of technical difficulties there. Trying to figure out technology. Is it kicking your butt, John?
Yeah, it's always kicking my butt.
Always. So yeah, so I'd love to have the Colonel in here. For those who are just tuning in, especially those for tuning in from South Africa, Colonel Chris Wyatt, he's not on sabbatical. He's out doing his job in South Africa. He's taken a number of meetings throughout South Africa, throughout the country. I don't know exactly where he's at tonight. He says he doesn't have good internet coverage, so he's not on the show tonight. But he's probably somewhere that you can probably go see him. So while he's there, see if you can find him. I don't know where he's going to be. I don't have his calendar in front of me. But if you follow Colonel Chris Wyatt, check out his social media pages, and then I'm sure you could probably find out where he's at and where his next public engagement is going to be.
He is probably laying horizontal with his eyes closed.
I imagine not worrying about this show at all.
It's probably about 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning in South Africa right now. So he's probably
Right.
resting for tomorrow.
Right, absolutely, for sure. So at 36 after, I wonder where our regular caller is. I'd love to have him call us.
Well, yeah, we haven't heard from him in a while. You see that the Liberals won Canada.
Yeah,
Carney's going to be the PM. We knew that.
right. Yeah, they don't. Yeah, they didn't have the numbers of the Conservatives, sadly. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of crazy. They don't seem to change, and they're losing this whole tariff war. I mean, I was reading an article recently that Canadian truck drivers are downsizing up to 60 to 70%. That's huge. You know, as trucking goes, the economy goes, and when they're downsizing that large, Canadians are taking a hit, bro.
Yep. Oh, I imagine so. Yeah. You're doing.
Carney needs to pull his head out of his rear end. And I imagine, do you think now that he's prime minister, I mean, it's sealed, the deal is sealed, election is over, you figure he's going to come and have some talks with Trump now and try to iron out these wrinkles, or you think he's just going to keep taking the hits?
Now, I would imagine he's going to have to come to Washington, come to the Oval Office, and have those discussions. You're just going to have to. You know,
I kind of hope he does. I mean, I hope they get it worked out. I mean, I feel bad for folks in Canada. Taking them kind of hits isn't good. You know, they need their economic strengths too. I know they relied on the U.S. a lot, and it's to my understanding that they kind of looked at that when this started and realized, oh wow, we really did rely on the U.S. economy, and they're trying to figure out ways to reach out to other nations to build their own strengths in their own economy, and so they had an eye-opening moment in this, from my understanding.
Right. I have somebody sent me a message here asking if you could put the show on the Facebook page there, the Common Sense Conservative page.
It's not on there?
No, not on there. If you could pop it on there, they watch it from there. So
no, I messed up when I built up the show.
That's all right.
So sorry about that. Let me see if I can get it over there.
No problem at all.
Take but a moment.
So let me ask, how long do you think it's going to take for the numbers of illegals in the U.S. to drop to pre-Trump or pre-Biden levels?
Surprisingly enough, Biden and Obama alike did a lot of deportation, but they didn't talk about it. Obama had a lot. I forgot the amount. Like 1 year was 484,000 some odd hundred undocumented immigrants. You know, I think that was 2014.
Right.
If I'm not mistaken. So they like to play high and mighty, you know, and a lot of people don't seem to understand, because the liberal left to keep. In fact, I just lost a Facebook friend over this, because she was talking about a post I made about nobody made a big deal about Elian Gonzalez when Clinton come along at gunpoint and took him out of somebody's home. And where was due process then? What were somebody's complaint about due process? Yeah, it was in the courts. Somebody brought up, yeah, sure, it was in the courts, and it was still in the courts. It was still being battled. Appeals were being had, and Clinton politicized that and decided, hey, you know what, we're giving this kid back to Castro, and
yeah.
At any rate, I've kind of brought this case up, and then people want to start talking about, well, you know, whether it was Clinton or if it was Trump, what difference does it make? You do believe in due process, don't you? And I'm like, absolutely. Fifth Amendment. All right, let's talk about it. And so I brought up, I said that what's it called? Expedited removal.
Right.
You familiar with what that means? For the listener's sake, expedited removal means that if somebody's in gangs, somebody's committed crime, somebody's undocumented, you don't get due process the same way as somebody who is documented, because people have a requirement when they come into the country to seek out the immigration office and become documented immigrants. and then they go through the process of gaining citizenship, so on and so forth.
Right.
The only exception to that I'm aware of is if ICE comes to arrest you and you claim at that point in time that you're here for asylum, then they have to go through another process. Now they got to start documenting you and allow you a chance for judicial court, judicial review or hearings and so on and so forth. So expedited removal is actually part of due process. But man, you tell your liberal friend that, and all of a sudden, boom, you're blocked and gone.
Right.
Like, oh,
Right.
sayonara, see ya, bye bye.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But it's a
I
thing.
guess they think. Go ahead.
Well, Biden executed it. Obama executed it. So why is it so bad that Trump's executing it?
Right. Yeah. Well, this guy that they kicked out of the country from Baltimore, right? Or he was in Baltimore, I believe, right? Had due process because he had a deportation order. So it was in front of some judge that looked at it and said, yes, this guy has to go. So there was a process that he went through. Whether he was standing there in a courtroom or not is besides the point. There was a process for this guy, and the judge said he gone, and they went and got him, and he gone.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
That's it. That's due process.
Processes isn't just the way people think that you get to go to
They
court.
think it's law and order. Yeah, getting your Sunday best and go stand up on it. Yeah, no, that's not exactly that. That is one form, yes, but that's not the only way. The only form.
Exactly. So, yeah, I think the problem with people on the left is they're not thinking for themselves. They don't do their own research. They keep listening to the talking points of the Brookings Institute or the DNC or Yahoo Serious on social media, and they're regurgitating stuff that they know nothing about.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
And then they're getting mad because somebody shows them the truth, and all of a sudden their ego gets burst, and well, you're blocked.
Well, I had somebody talk about due process the other day. Our county recently basically went around to all the different properties and reappraised all the properties. That happens about every 10 years, I think it is. And it's some houses doubled, and some went up significantly, some doubled, and some went up more than that. And it's based on something the state has in place. I'm not going to try to get into all the specifics, but so it pissed off a lot of people, rightly so.
Mm-hmm.
But then I had somebody on social media I saw talking about, if they don't allow us to have a hearing with the property assessor, they're not allowing us due process, and that's illegal. It's against the Constitution. I'm like, this has nothing to do with you having a hearing with the property assessor. It has nothing to do with due process. That has nothing to do with it. And I'm like, you're a complete moron. But anyway, they're just documenting the numbers of complaints and the issues and that people are going to have if they actually went through with that. And they're documenting it, sending it on to state. But anyway, had some idiot talk about due process. I'm like, that's not due process. What are you talking about? That has nothing to do with your property rate or your assessed rate. That has nothing to do with it. But anyway, people that don't understand what the hell due process is, anyway, from a legal standpoint.
Well, that they were going through due process. I mean, census enumeration is within the U.S. Constitution.
Right.
I mean, governments take census. So when they come to your house and they want to know if you still have 4 bedrooms, 2 baths, and whatever, this is a common thing. And they only do it every 10 years, and they evaluate taxes and other valuations on it to figure out where they stand and how they can budget.
Right.
It's not necessarily a bad thing, but you get these guys out there chiming up going, this is unconstitutional. You're not allowed to do nonsense. Read the U.S. Constitution. At least do that much.
Right. And also people that did quick to, they got pissed off very quick. Like, oh, they're going to double our taxes. Like, no, that's not what this is. That has nothing to do with what your tax rate's going to be.
They can do valuations on that. But usually with taxes, most cities and towns have a cap.
Right.
So your house may actually in the open market go up, say it increases $100,000, but the cities and towns usually have a cap of, I don't remember, 3-5% or whatever. They can only increase so much percentage a year. Right. So your house may be worth more than what the town can assess.
Right. Right. Exactly. Correct.
So but they had here back in the, here in Nashua, New Hampshire, back in about 2007, 2008, they had raised everybody's taxes. They did their whole tax assessment, and everybody's taxes went up, and they went up considerably.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people were complaining because it was a recession. And but the city turned around and gave leniencies, so people could apply for grievances that the tax rate is too high for them to budget and so on and so forth. And they actually did reduction for individuals that did so.
Right.
So cities aren't always the worst in the world. Sometimes they'll make adjustments, but you have to go, talk to somebody and get the ball rolling with it,
Yep. Bingo. You're absolutely correct.
So what you got going on there? Somebody texting you?
Yeah, somebody's texting me. Yeah, I'm just trying to let them know. Let me just tell him I'm gonna call him.
Call them on the phone right now.
No, just later. So yeah, they're asking some question. I didn't answer them in a text message yesterday, and they're like, "Oh, what's up?" I'm like, "What was a question I didn't need to be asked or answered?" So sorry.
I like this Harmeet Dillon, Department of Justice, Civil Rights. That's what I was thinking of earlier.
Right.
Civil rights head has parting words for walkouts, and apparently a lot of lawyers now are leaving the Department of Justice, and because they don't want to adhere to Trump's policies, and so they'd rather just take the severance pay and leave. But now it's going to leave Department of Justice in a lurch because they're going to have to do some serious hiring.
Right.
Well, her attitude was, good, bye, see you. We don't need your wokeness here in government anymore. We're trying to do real government.
Yeah, that's right.
Our policies aren't about, how many homosexuals or this or that, or, cross dressers or whatever gets a job or gets this or gets that. Our policies are about law, actual law.
Right. Yeah, I imagine Democrats, sitting in Washington, whenever they take over, say, a department or whatever, and it's like they have sheet cake every day, and it's like, okay, today we're celebrating this, and Jenny over here, she was born, an African American female, nothing extraordinary, but now she's the first albino unicorn male female, variant or what, it's all these
Yep.
different things that you could add in there, hyphen, and here's the sheet cake to prove it. It's like, there we go.
Yeah, everybody gets cake every day of the week,
every
and they wonder
day.
why they're all heavy and stuff, and they got to
Right.
start some
And
new program.
then they're going to have to get, onto some sort of healthcare program that they're going to have to start for them, a special one, because working in government makes you fat and obese and all this stuff. So therefore, all the sheet cake you're forced to eat, you got a special medical program now.
Diabetes is on the rise, and we don't understand why. Well, get rid of the sheet cakes.
Yes, stop celebrating everything that you put a hyphen to every day. It's enough.
Oh, that's funny. I remember Elaine Chao was in the Department of Labor before she went to the Department of Transportation.
Right.
And what was that under George W. Bush, right? Yeah, it was. It was under Bush.
Yeah, she was labor under W, but she actually had worked in transportation under Reagan. I think I forget what she was doing, up and coming through first HW for the first Bush 41. I think she worked as an assistant secretary of transportation or something like that. That's how she met McConnell through her Reagan days.
They didn't learn their lesson the first time around. They had to do it again, and then a third time.
Right, she's been around. I mean, by being married to Mitch McConnell, that's brought her in and out of cabinet positions, regularly.
I think so.
Oh, big time. Yeah. I mean,
I always thought the deal was cut that Trump needed McConnell's support to get into the White House for his first term. And the deal was Elaine gets a position at the DOT, gets the position. I think that deal was made. That was a handshake.
Oh, it was. And he wasn't basically obstructed all of his agenda, basically.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And then of course, once Trump got in, they had a falling out.
Yeah, what W. Bush had her in there, kind of the same reason too, because I mean, here it is, the most most important or the most consequential Republican in the Senate at the time. Why not throw the wife in there? Who cares?
Mm-hmm. Well, there's an advantage. I mean, come on, man, we know what happened when she was last in this as a Secretary of Transportation. She had secret meetings. She had meetings with family members in there. Her family is involved in the shipping lanes, cargo shipping from Taiwan and China to the United States and South America too. And then lo and behold, I don't know if her family had any ties to this or not, but it's awfully suspicious when the hull of their boat is inspected and found lots and lots and lots and lots of cocaine.
Right.
In South America.
Right.
Why was that cocaine in the hull of one of her family's boats? I'm just
right. And that's where they started calling him Cocaine Mitch. But I would dare say nearly every ship that goes in and out of major harbors probably has many things that are illegal on them. That I mean, it just happens. People do.
I used to haul plants out of South Florida, man, tropical plants, and deliver them up here in the Northeast and stuff. And I always, man, I'm unloading boxes and boxes of plants, thinking to myself, I hope there's not drugs in these things. You really got to wonder. You know what I mean? Nobody's really inspecting these trucks going up and down the coast. And
No.
I don't know what their safety net is if one of them ever gets popped. But yeah, I've always wondered.
Let me ask you a question. Anybody ever found a bunch of drugs or money or something on a load?
Not one of those, no, but that's happened a lot in trucking where people gotten involved with shipping large sums of cocaine or other drugs inside their trucks. And,
Right.
it gets to be one of these, yeah, my business was failing. I was falling behind and I really needed to make them truck payments. And somebody made me an offer and I thought it was a one-time deal and that money was kind of sweet. So I did it again. And well, lo and behold, about the 10th, 11th, 12th time, I got busted.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm just saying, like anybody who's randomly just come across it, that happened to, like, what's this? Uh-oh.
No, I'd never had that happen. Some of those, some, like I said, some of it's boxed. So
Sure.
you're not opening up boxes for them. You're
Right,
just dropping
right,
by.
right.
I ain't got time to mess with that, right? A lot of the plants themselves, individual plants, are sleeved.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't necessarily come out of the sleeving. That's not common. So for it to tip over and stuff to fall out, it's pretty well secured when you think about it. But it's not secured really to hide something as much as, I mean, if I ever went through an inspection and they had a drug sniffing dog walked around there, it'd be bust city. They'd have you right there.
Sure. Right.
But it just wasn't happening. But there's places in Arkansas and stuff that've got what's that it's a machine called where they got the extended boom. They can put the forks on the front of it and they can extend all the way to the nose of the trailer inside the trailer and unload every pallet off that thing. And they've done it to inspect it for drugs and stuff like that. And they busted people doing it.
Yeah, I imagine.
And I salute them for it. I'm happy every time they bust somebody because I'm vehemently opposed to illegal drugs. I think it's been the ruin of the United States of America. And I want every one of them busted as quick as they can be busted and put away for it. I don't care if it's my brother. Get him.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. Go get him. Yeah. I get you. Yeah. I was just curious if you had any stories where anybody's ever just randomly, like, oh, what's this? A pallet falls over or something. It's like, oh, look at that. That's not sugar.
That would be interesting. I know I kind of tricked some guys into hand unloading a pallet of cactuses one time, or cacti, I should say. And,
right.
Cacti, yeah. And I didn't realize how heavy that pallet really was. And I kind of BS'd them into it and we almost tipped it. So it could have been an instant,
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, we got it down to the ground. I thought to myself, I'm not doing that ever again. That was wrong.
Right. Yep. Good deal. No, just curious. It was just interesting, and it's I mean, yeah. I mean, how many trucks do you see out on the road or cars just in general? That's like, yeah, there could be something in there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, you know what they say. During the course of your life, you probably walk past several different murderers. I forgot how many it was.
Sure. Right.
So you never know who's who and what's what. You're driving down the road and there's thousands of people a day that are passing you or you're passing them. You don't know what's in their cars. You don't know what they're doing. You don't know where they're going. I mean, it's not like I got x-ray vision. So, yeah, you never know what's out there.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I mean, yeah, I mean, the nicest guy in the world, and all of a sudden, like, yep, that guy's killed like 15 people. You don't even know it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I hear they found a bunch of bodies somewheres. Now I can't remember. Man, I just saw an article a few days ago about that, and I want to say it was somewhere around Massachusetts here. They were finding remains, and there was like some kind of concern. Does that mean there's a serial killer? But
interesting. Yeah,
I don't know. Could have been just an old graveyard for all I know. Yeah, this is the time of year for loud pipes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. People get the hot rods out and the little rice burners.
Yeah, them rice burners, they like their loud pipes too. I've noticed. I remember when I was a young man, I had a Seika 550 with a Kirker pipe on it, muffler system, and those things as they age, they're like a trumpet the way they're shaped. So they get nice and loud.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Also today in the cabinet meeting, Secretary Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, revealed that an office within the within the Department of State actually had a dossier on Trump, a misinformation dossier, according to Fox News. Interesting. Yeah, they actually paid people to keep a list of things or to keep tabs on a political rival. And of course, that is completely illegal, unethical, immoral, amongst many other things, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. You're not
Uh,
supposed to be doing stuff like that.
I mean, a political rival. I mean, that's. I mean, come on now.
So let's see.
That's just sick. And of course, we paid for that. We paid for political opposition. Which the American taxpayers shouldn't be forced to pay for something that they don't support, right? I mean, if I wanted to give money to the DNC or the RNC, I can do that, but don't sit there and backhand it or under the table it. Where you're sitting here gathering information, and of course, that information found its way over to Kamala and of course the DNC for sure.
Yeah, they like to collect data too.
Yep. Speaking of data, right?
Yeah. All data is good data if it serves you well.
Right. Absolutely. Oh, and Epstein's accuser, Virginia, I'll mispronounce this, Giuffre, encouraged abuse survivors to keep fighting in a journal entry, her last journal entry before she committed suicide. So, and it's sad that we've not seen any justice with regards to that, right? I dare say we're probably not. We've not seen any prosecutions thus far. When are we going to see it? All these powerful people that we know have been on the planes, have been on the island, have even admitted to it. But I didn't do any of that. It's like, come on, when are we going to find that information? When are we going to see those videos?
That is a thing about it, man. And I've said that before at the beginning. Just because people were there doesn't mean they participated in illegal activities.
I agree.
That's the hard part about it. But yeah, I should think there's an investigation going on. I mean, all these people that come forth as victims have knowledge, working knowledge for them to investigate upon.
Right. And you can't say it's a conspiracy theory. It didn't happen. And you think about it. No one's out trying to discredit anybody or say it didn't happen. At this point, people who engaged in it or who were there incidentally, perhaps, like you said, that maybe they were there, didn't engage. Maybe they were trying to get them. They were fishing them. But regardless, they're not going to come out and say anything. They don't want to be associated. So when is there going to be any justice for that? I dare say there probably won't be.
Well, I mean, come on, man. The funniest thing is so many people on the left that have fought human trafficking. And what did Trump say about this whole deportation thing? I am going after gangsters. I am going after the worst of the worst in the country. The people that are going to hurt people in America, those are the ones I'm going to deport. That's what he said. And you got all these leftists that are supposedly against human trafficking and all this other stuff and narcotics and yada, yada, yada. And all of a sudden they're like, well, that guy's allowed due process and you're violating his due process. It's like, that guy's a gangster who's hurt people. And you actually think he's entitled to go to court and be heard and stuff and stay in the United States of America? No, that's what expedited removal means, is to get rid of morons like that.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. And of course, if he has an order for removal, that he's had due process right there.
That's it. That's part of due process too.
Bingo. Yep, you got it. So we got 30 seconds before we play off for the music.
Yeah, we get about 6-7 seconds. Yeah.
All right, folks. We'll be back at the top of the hour after we get played off some news and some local commercials. I always like that one, the one that lets me know to put my headphones back on.
Oh, the
headstones. Yeah.
The Wilbur Brimley sounding guy.
Yeah. We'll be back here in a couple minutes.
WSMN 1590, WSMN 95.3 FM Nashua. Listen, watch, and stream at wsmn.live.
ABC News, I'm Chuck Sievertson. Largely due to a drop in trade, the Commerce Department says the U.S. economy contracted by 0.3% in the first quarter, the first decline since the pandemic. President Trump blaming President Biden, but pointed to an increase in imports, which is the result of U.S. companies stocking up ahead of more tariffs, says ABC News business correspondent Rebecca Jarvis.
Because they did that, it made a big impact, decreasing the amount of GDP,
which is gross domestic product, the total of U.S. goods and services. It was a roller coaster, mixed day on Wall Street. The U.S. and Ukraine have signed a long-awaited deal that gives the U.S. rights to Ukrainian minerals, as announced by the Treasury Department. A Columbia University student arrested 2 weeks ago during his citizenship interview was ordered released from detention today. Federal Judge Jeffrey Crawford in Vermont, citing Mohsen Madawi's claims that he was targeted for his protected speech. This is ABC News. 11 West Hill, New York high school students accused of staging a kidnapping of a teammate have turned themselves in after an ultimatum from Onondaga County prosecutor William Fitzpatrick. He says the alleged abduction was part of a lacrosse hazing.
People came out of the woods all dressed in black. They were armed with what appeared to be at least one handgun and at least one knife. The individual had a pillowcase placed over his head. He was tied up and placed in the trunk of a car.
Fitzpatrick says each would be given a ticket for unlawful imprisonment. The Alzheimer's Association says despite progress in finding a cure, as many as 7.2 million Americans over age 65 are living with the disease. A 180-year-old private Christian university in South Carolina plans to close at the end of the semester after failing to raise $6 million to keep its doors open. Limestone University. Chuck Sievertson, ABC News.
Hey, it's me, your liver. You know, the organ that helps you recover every weekend after pizza, donuts, and all those drinks. When you have a headache, you take an aspirin. You have a stomach ache, you pop an acid. But where's the love for your best buddy, the liver? The least that you could do to help me stay healthy is take Active Liver from New Nordic. Active Liver tablets contain high-quality, all-natural ingredients like milk thistle, globe artichoke, and turmeric extracts, which are proven to keep me healthy and you feeling your best. Active Liver provides an easy daily detox and helps protect me all year long. So let me make you an offer you can't refuse. You take care of me with Active Liver, and I keep taking care of you. Capiche?
See for yourself why Active Liver is Scandinavia's #1 liver health supplement. You can find Active Liver at CVS and online at Amazon or directly from newnordicusa.com. Again, find it in stores at CVS or online at Amazon or newnordicusa.com.
Continuing the legacy started in 1904, Roger Pellerin of Gate City Monument Incorporated continues to provide the same high-quality monument, custom headstone, and stoneworking craftsmanship today that they built their reputation on over 100 years ago, servicing Nashua, New Hampshire, as well as nearby areas in Massachusetts, such as Lowell, Billerica, Chelmsford, and beyond. From creating custom monuments to memorialize, to landscaping and granite work or restorative services, each job is done to your satisfaction and is backed by decades of experience and integrity. If you're thinking about stonework, think Roger Pellerin of Gate City Monument. Visit online at gatecitymonument.com. Stop by and meet Roger at 321 West Hollis Street in Nashua, or call 603-883-7141. That's 603-883-7141. Gate City Monument, memorials of distinction for people who care.
The views.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you're just now tuning in, you're listening to the Common Sense Conservatives right here, WSMN 1590 and WSMN 95.3 on your FM dial. Todd, it just amazes me to think that there's been a law in effect since 1936 that in order to drive a commercial motor vehicle, you have to be proficient in speaking and reading and writing English, which makes kind of sense, right? Because you got to be able to communicate the risk with the public and law enforcement officers and so on and so forth. If you can't read traffic signs, how can you drive a big truck across the roads in the United States of America? But the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration is so lax on its job, so lazy, so incompetent that the President of the United States of America had to sign an executive order requiring them to enforce such a rule. Isn't that pathetic?
That's weird. Yeah, forcing them to enforce the law that's on the book. That's weird.
Yeah, I thought it was pathetic.
Yeah, makes no sense. I mean, that is what an executive order essentially is. Basically, it tells the executive branch which laws that the president has prioritized to enforce. Basically,
It does. It gives directives, sets policies, and
right.
within the different departments and or specific department depending. And
Right.
yeah, it's not like the president can write an executive order requiring Todd McKinley and John Grover to cut back the radio signal, or WSMN to cut back its rate. Well, actually,
Well, yeah,
wait a
I mean,
minute, I kind of got that wrong.
Yeah, the FCC could definitely issue some order to the station for sure.
Yeah, I got that wrong. Darn it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they would probably have to justify it if you fought it in court, but could easily easily be done. Yeah.
I meant like personal, and I kind of
I get what you're saying.
Native business, yeah.
Like they couldn't say, Todd McKinley can't be on the air, Well,
there you go. That's what I'm getting at.
For what reason am I getting kicked off the air?
You're only allowed to broadcast for 1 3/4 hours a week,
right?
Not a full 2 hours.
I have to break off the show midway through the second hour, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
that's the sort of thing they can't do.
Can't do stuff like that. No. But anyway, yeah, they can definitely tell us that you're using too much signal or too, whatever.
Yeah, they definitely did
because you're drowning out the another station, and that's unfair.
The most amazing thing to me with all the signals and stuff, all the bandwidth and everything on the radio, and I see them put 3 radio stations that are relatively close together on the same frequency. I'm like, why? Why would you do that? I'm still baffled by that when I see stuff like that.
Yeah,
hey,
of course,
they know better than me.
Right now with digital, I mean, you can have a number of stations on one band, right? I guess, and have different channels within that, right?
Well, yeah. When you're talking about when broadband and things like that, you've got a whole lot of different frequencies within that bandwidth, and they can fine tune that pretty good. And they've got
absolutely.
Remember back in the 90s when you're on the cell phone and somebody's radio signal would bleed through your speakers.
Right. Oh yeah. Well, I remember I had walkie-talkies, and people back in those days in the 80s didn't have cell phones, but they had portable phones, and you could sit in certain places and pick up conversations. It's funny.
Oh yeah, like CB radio. See that?
Yeah.
When you buy a CB radio, you're buying a bare bones communication device at about 4 watts.
Yeah.
But those of us that know better take it down to the CB guy, the shop, and he'll peak and tune that bad boy, and you're probably pushing 35 watts or something.
Ooh,
well, 35 watts getting on somebody's aerial antenna on top of their house. Their TV goes weird, and they start hearing your CB conversation on their. Remember that?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That was funny back in the day.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And of course now that's why you have a communications commission that enforces stuff like that, which makes sense. A regulatory agency for things like that. I agree with it.
They don't enforce none of that with CB radios. They haven't enforced that in so long. They got rid of the old handles. Remember, like CBs, you had to have a license, and you had to have a handle like ham radios. And so, but I did run into a radio guy one time, and I could hear him forever. See, he was in the military, and he was a radio man. And he says, "You guys go out, get your radios peaked and tuned, and you think you're big doings, but listen, you got to know how to set up your antenna. You got to know how to set your coax. You got to know how to, And I swear, man, I'm like 15 miles away, and I'm still hearing him like he's sitting next to me. Not loud, but I could hear him.
Oh yeah. I've done some training, and some of these SF guys and stuff, and like you're out in the middle of the nowhere, and they're like, we're going to use this tree right here. It's going to be our antenna. And he comes up with basically stuff you'd have on you and creates an antenna, and he can talk to somebody on the other side of the world. I'm like, how did you do that? He's like, this is what you will learn.
Yeah. Some people know their business when it comes to that.
Yeah, talks to people.
Most of us, it just feels overwhelming to try to figure it out. But yeah, it's interesting stuff, really. Now, when you think about it, cell phone signals really are radio signals communicating with a cell tower. But they are radio signals on certain frequencies.
Yep.
So if we're broadcasting on the internet and somebody's listening on their cell phone while they're driving down the road, they're picking up a radio signal off a cell tower. We're actually processing a radio signal. Just a thought.
Just a thought. There you go.
I was thinking about that one day. Somebody accused me. They were making fun of me for doing podcasting and stuff. They're like, "Oh, you do radio," and I'm like, "It is. Think about it." So that's why I brought it up. But,
right. Yeah. Where everybody that says, "Oh, can I be a guest on the podcast?" It's like, well, it's not it's radio, terrestrial radio, but it's also a podcast. It's streaming. It's a little bit. It's everything. So you get it all.
That's the nice thing about technology. So an interesting tidbit of information is completely totally useless to you, but just the same, is the DOT is trying to create vehicle-to-vehicle communications. And they were relying on the FCC when the new broadband came out and stuff. Well, the FCC had to divide the broadband out between different sectors of industries and stuff. And the DOT was expecting to get this really big bandwidth, and they didn't get what they expected to get. So now they're sitting there going, well, we can't do autonomous vehicles because we only got this little rinky-dinky with the broadband. So I thought it was kind of funny because they got all these big ambitions and everything, and the FCC pretty much turned the screws to them. I don't know if it was intentional or if they were just like, hey, that's how I had to go, because they had to designate so much for education and so much for this and so much for that. I don't remember all the details, but I was just loving it because I'm totally against autonomous vehicles. I'm totally against this V2V communications. So when the DOT didn't get what they needed, it was kind of like a little fist pump in the air for that one.
Right. Yeah. Good deal. Yeah, I definitely don't want to see autonomous for sure. Putting people out of business at the same time, there's too much that could go wrong. I think. I just think I'd rather have somebody in there at least,
Well, the thing of it, okay, so like look at airplanes.
Yeah.
Airplanes are what's called fly-by-wire, which means it's all computer controlled. It's all electronic controlled. There are no mechanisms anymore. So when you push that little joystick, the computer is picking up on a sensor. It's sending a signal somewhere, which is hitting an actuator, which is going to cause your rudder to turn and so on and so forth. If the computer malfunctions and you're operating that joystick, you're not doing anything. The computer's malfunctioning and you have no control. Right. So, and we've seen that one plane, I can't remember the year it was. There was a plane that the computer malfunctioned and the plane crashed and killed everybody. And the pilots were trying to counter for it, but they couldn't because the computer was in control.
Right.
And it had something to do with how it was reading something, some sort of sensor and coding was wrong in it. So it was reading, I don't remember, that it needed to make a correction. It didn't need to make it. It ultimately caused a crash.
Okay.
A lot of people died because of this, all
Right.
because of a computer error, and it had something to do with the way they wrote the code. They missed some lines or something. It was terrible. Can you imagine if you're doing vehicle-to-vehicle communications with autonomous vehicles? So they have what's called platooning. What the platooning is you've got 10 trucks running bumper to bumper. That first truck has sensors. They all have sensors, but that first truck is going to be your forward truck with all the sensors. Your front man, right? And it's going to be reading the road and things going on ahead of it.
Kind of like a
behind it,
kind
as
of like
going up.
kind of like a train to give everybody a visual.
Yeah. So basically, if that first truck has to hit the brakes, all the other trucks are going to hit the brakes at the same time, so they're all working in concert. But what happens when the sensor fails? What happens when the sensor doesn't read that there's stopped traffic up there with families and cars?
Right.
It's not just one truck careening into all them cars, but the other 9 trucks weighing at 80,000 pounds apiece is careening into all the cars. That sounds pretty scary to me. And with the way computers work, like we're talking about with the airplane incident, I don't think I want to trust that. I don't think I want to trust human lives at risk to a computer malfunction or missed lines of code. It doesn't make sense. But what happens when you have no kill switch? So they had one incident where a lady trucker was driving and the truck accelerated. And so she turned the key off because it was over accelerating. She was doing like 90 miles an hour down the interstate, out of control. She had no way of stopping it. I mean, it wasn't on her, it was on the truck. She turned the key off and the truck wouldn't turn off because it was computerized.
Right.
So she could push in the clutch because she had a manual transmission. But when she did, the engine over revved. So she kept trying to ride it out by letting the clutch out.
Right.
And she was asked, why did you let the clutch? Why did you let the clutch out? Why didn't you just keep the clutch in and bring it to a stop? She said, well, I was afraid I'd blow up the motor, but it was revving so high. I'm thinking to myself, it's a motor. I mean, But the problem with that is how do you explain that this happened? Because once all the codes were erased and there's no evidence that this ever happened, it looks like you were just negligent. So it's a catch-22 circumstance.
Right.
But because there's mechanisms involved, as long as you have a kill switch, somebody's got the capability of killing the computer and bringing the truck under control and bringing it to the hard shoulder of the road.
Right.
That's great. What happens when they make them fly by wire? What happens when no human being is sitting in a seat? Or worse yet, if you're having somebody sit in seats and the truck's doing all the driving, now that driver's out of practice. What good does it do to have a driver in the truck that can't drive the truck because the truck always drives itself? So that one time you need the driver, he's no good for it. I mean, it might be good for bringing it to the shoulder or something, but if you had to maneuver the thing, it'd probably be hazardous.
Right. Yep. Absolutely.
So to me, autonomous trucks are just a big load of ridiculousness.
Yeah. Yeah. Dangerous for sure. Yeah. I'm definitely not a fan. So I definitely don't think that we're there with technology.
But they're doing it.
To be able to really do it. I mean, I think it's dangerous if we're going to put them out there for real.
I can't remember where is it, Columbus to Indianapolis. They're going to start running autonomous trucks, self-driving trucks.
Yeah.
They've been doing it in Ohio. They've had them run across the country down off I-10. So the practicing with these things on real roads with human drivers, and people have spotted them. There's videos out there where people spotted them and they were recording the truck driving itself down the interstate. It's scary to think that they're guinea pigging with human lives out there, but yet the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration is supposed to be about safety. Congress is supposed to have the safety mechanism that's a government entity that regulates the trucking industry, but it's like the wild, wild west when it comes to autonomy. There's no regulations, there's no controls, and they're putting human lives at risk.
Yep, absolutely. Yep, you're absolutely correct. So I'm wondering, I wish the Colonel was here because I'd like to ask this question to him, but Kiev, Ukraine, and the U.S. just signed a deal regarding minerals, mineral rights, etc. And also, Russia's returning a number of bodies. I think 700 some bodies, 757 bodies returned. And these were returned to Kiev on I think back in February. But now they're doing autopsies on some of these bodies. They're finding a number of them were actually tortured, brutally tortured, beaten, sexually brutalized, and stuff like that. I'm wondering what this, and of course the fact that there's a mineral rights or agreement that was signed, what that's going to do for peace talks. Is it going to force Russia to come to the table? Where does this go? Or is Kiev ready to basically have the U.S. be the arbiter here, and they're going to kind of give up? I don't know.
Well, it sounds like an interesting circumstance, doesn't it? But how did they document the abuses? So they identified the abuses through autopsies and stuff, but how did they document? Did they third party it? Did they go
right? No, they're just looking at some of the bodies, and I think there was one reporter whose body was returned, female, that was just tortured, just brutally tortured.
Yeah, so it's kind of like that case of it's his word against their word. I mean, it's how if you didn't bring in. So supposedly they've done some blind studies on situations like say 9/11. I know it's conspiracy stuff, but they took fragments of 9/11 to different labs to have studies for residues and things like that to make determinations what may have been used for detonation devices, or if it was just diesel fuel or kerosene, jet fuel. Or what was going on. So it was all complete and total blind study so they could get results, Now that would be a fair documentation, right? If you had somebody outside that was non-biased, then it seems to me there's some leverage. But for one vested entity to do it by themselves against another vested, it's just argumentative.
Right.
So I don't think it's going to do a whole lot for peace talks unless they have, if they have some people from the U.S. come in and say, look, examine these, please.
Right.
Provide proof. Then they got something to leverage on. So what's this about the minerals? You talking about the mineral rights with the United States?
Yeah, U.S. and the Ukraine, yes, inked a deal. Yeah, I didn't read the full text of it, but I did see that they inked the deal recently or today. Yeah, so getting close there. Yeah, so or they're very close. I can't remember what I read here. I'm thinking that they've closed the deal on that one, so that'll be interesting. So that means they may be close to on peace talks as well. Who knows?
Well, let's hope so.
Maybe they're looking at having the U.S. be some sort of guarantee with regards to safety, and without having them formally join NATO. Maybe that's a thought.
Yeah, I don't think that Ukraine's getting into NATO. Trump is pretty adamant about that. I know that Ukraine was pretty upset because I think Trump wanted for Russia to go ahead and take the Donbass region and some other areas out there.
Right.
But they were going to allow Ukraine access to the mouth of the river. I don't remember the name of the river. I'm not that geographically savvy on Ukraine, but I forgot the name of the river. But yeah, so basically it would be Russian controlled, but Ukraine would have access, I guess, for purposes of ports and things like that.
Right.
That's what they were working on.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Interesting.
Ukraine wasn't happy about it. They weren't satisfied. They don't want to give up anything they gained, but they don't want to lose anything they lost either.
Right. Absolutely. Here, I'm just scrolling through some of the highlights, if you will, and I'm trying to make sense of some of this stuff. Anyway, there's a story here. I'm not going to delve into it, but it's North Carolina should consider cutting ties with Bill Belichick. Expatriate linebacker says. So Ted Johnson, a former New England Patriots linebacker who won 3 Super Bowls with the team, said Tuesday that North Carolina should consider firing Bill Belichick over the book tour debacle. Johnson fired off his hot take on WEEI radio. It came as Belichick and his girlfriend Jordan Hudson were scrutinized for their interview on CBS News Sunday morning. When Belichick was asked about how he met Hudson, she shut down the question. So interesting. The awkward interview sparked a lot of scrutiny. And it says, I say, quote, I say all that to say this, that I think the Carolina Tar Heels should consider firing Bill Belichick, end quote. Johnson, who played for Belichick, said on the station, they should consider letting him go at this point. It's a lot of money, and they're deep in their preparation for next year. But I look at Bill Belichick, and I wonder if he's fit to coach an NFL team, let alone fit to coach a college team, which, again, I put more onus on the character personality of the college coach than I do on the pro coach. So I'm worried that Bill Belichick just isn't fit to coach college kids, and UNC should consider cutting ties with Bill Belichick. Interesting. So I'm wondering what else they got into that just, I mean, the fact that she's, 20 some years old and he's like, what, 80?
Yeah.
No red flags there, right?
That somehow reminds me of that. Remember that movie, The Toy?
Yeah. Right. With
and she loved to tell how they met, and he hated it because it was a strip club, and
yeah,
he was an old man, she was a younger woman.
The Toy. Which movie is
that? Was
this?
Richard Pryor.
Okay,
the Toy?
Yeah, the Richard Pryor one. Yeah. They had the Spider-Man outfit. Yeah, I want to make sure I was on the right
remember,
one.
Remember that the kitchen? This sauce ain't tasting right. It ain't tasting right. I keep putting Rego in it, but it ain't tasting right. She goes, "Let me see that." And it was obviously weed, but that was grass. Yeah.
The Toy. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
turned out to be a good movie. I remember it. It was a lot of fun. Old Richard Pryor movie.
Oh yeah, Richard Pryor. Yeah. Great movie. He was a great actor, wasn't he?
He was.
Awesome.
He was out there. I mean, he could get crude, but yeah, he was out there.
But still, a heck of an actor though. Him and Gene Wilder were great together in so many movies.
Oh, what was that movie they did together where they were escaping prison?
Well, they had Hear No Evil, See No Evil, or something like that. There was a few others that they did. Yeah, the Escaping Prison one they did. Yeah, the one where they had to get on the train to get to Chicago. I forget which one that one was, but yeah, there was a lot of great movies they did together.
They did. They absolutely. They were good together.
Great comedy duo.
Wow, I cannot remember the name of it, but that was a funny movie. But Richard Pryor was a funny man. I mean, like I say, he was a little out there, but he was funny. I think Eddie Murphy based a lot of his, in his younger days, based a lot of his bits around somewhat of Richard Pryor, personification and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. What's funny is Eddie Murphy, who was he was 19 and on SNL. And he actually was asked to host the show while he was on the show. It's kind of funny. So I think that was the first and maybe the only time a person who's a member of the cast actually hosted the show, because I think he had just launched one of his movies or whatever. I can't remember. And was just taken off as a comic. So.
Oh, yeah. He did a lot of good stuff. Until he became a father and had kids, and obviously everything got to be Disney remakes.
Yeah, I did all the Disney stuff, but now he's back to doing kind of Eddie stuff, Eddie projects.
Yeah, I got that. What he did a third bit on oh, what's the name of that? Where he was a Detroit cop, went out to L.A.
Right. Yeah. Beverly Hills Cop 3, right?
Yeah,
Or
that
was it? Yeah, 3 or 4? Was it 3 or 4? Yeah.
I think it was 3. I
Yeah.
thought it was 3. I didn't see it, but
Yeah. Oh, it
I
was
remember
good.
Chris talked about it.
Yeah, he really liked it. Yeah, I think it did the characters justice, and it wasn't doing just fan service for fan service sake, Like,
Yeah.
you get some of these movies or TV shows where it's like, it's a reunion show or whatever, and it's like 30 years later they're still out on the street being cops. It's like, come on now, that's not believable.
Right. It's kind of like they're just trying to they create a little bit of a franchise and trying to bilk it for all it's worth. Like
Yeah.
Jaws 163.
Right.
The
Well, this-
Megalodon shark resurfaces.
Right. Yeah. Well, this worked because people had retired and moved on, and people had gotten promoted and stuff like that. And yeah. So they didn't try to just relive the old glory days of somebody still out on the beat. It's like, come on now.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. There's a point where there's a desk job, then there's retirement, and that's it.
I can imagine. I've seen some older cops, but yeah, imagine they reach a point where they get tired of being on the beat.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to beat you down. I mean, especially if you're in a city like LA or Detroit or something like that. I mean, shoot, where you're having an engagement nearly several times a day with the public. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's where, you're in Detroit for maybe 10 years or something, that you're going to run over to a more quiet town where not so
Right.
much is happening.
Right. Well, a lot of people do that. They'll get their feet wet, get a lot of experience, and then they'll go make a lot more money somewhere else. They can pay them, and of course they get to be home in the evenings with their kids.
Yeah, or at least more relaxing, so it's not so stressful every day. I mean, how many young people are you going to chase through alleys and stuff?
No, exactly.
I saw, they got that part, what do they call it? I can't think of what it's called, where people jump and scale buildings.
Parkour.
Yeah, they got that. And I saw a cop one time in England was, video. He's chasing a guy, and this guy scaled up, up the drain pipe and stuff. And he's on the roof, and the cop's looking around. He's getting mad because he couldn't possibly win anywhere, but he couldn't figure out where he was. And the guy's sitting on the roof the whole time. But the guy who's recording that you're watching from knows what happened, and the cop's yelling at him because he's getting frustrated. The guy won't, he's not going to tell the cop what he saw.
Right. There you go. Yeah.
Not to pick on cops. I'm just saying it was just kind of interesting. Well, I kind of felt bad for the cop. I'm like, man, you should tell the cop. The guy's probably a dirtbag, but he didn't want to be a narc. So.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So you remember David Hogg, right?
Skinny guy who seemed to be a what they call that, disaster actor.
Oh, well, that's what. Yeah, disaster actor. Well, he's a DNC. He's one of the I guess one of the vice chairs or whatever. Well, now he's going to have some competition. I think the Democrats have realized that with people like him in place, that the parties went in the wrong direction for sure. So now he's going to have some experience actually competing for his position there in the DNC. So interesting. David Hogg, who has helped disasterize the Democrat Party, is having some competition by somebody. I don't know if they're going to be any better, but apparently they want to push in the different, better direction. So.
Do you see any hope for the future of the DNC, or do you just see them going forward in the same path they've been going all along?
Well, I'd like to see it collapse further, more calamity over there. But at the same time, I'm looking at some of the people who are jumping up, like we talked about in the Republican Party. A lot of people who are kind of new to politics, they're coming in with guns blazing, shooting at everybody. And it's like, no, you want to build coalitions with some of these people that you're shooting at, Some of these people are on your side. But so I see that happening on the right, and of course the right now is in win mode, if you will. So everybody on social media, all these people that are trying to make money, trying to glamorize the politics, if you will, those people are also involved politically, and so they have they have a big following, so it's easy for them to win elections. It's like, we got to find good candidates, not somebody just has a lot of following or who's just new to the game and wants to just shoot at everybody. I get it. You want to use your flamethrower every now and then, but at the same time, you want to be careful with who you're flaming, who you're shooting at. You know what I mean? Proverbially.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You burn bridges, man. You might not be able to cross.
Right, absolutely. And in recent elections, especially since the rise of Trump, you're seeing a lot of local elections where people are just showing up running, and there some of them are winning. but they're flaming everybody, you know, and it's like they burned every bridge. And then of course they've not really produced in public office like they promised. They came out and said all the words that they need to say, but they weren't ready to actually lead themselves or legislate themselves. But they knew what they had to do to get in public office. And we're seeing that in my home county. We're seeing several people who got elected that way, and that should have never been elected to anything. But here they are, you know.
You see that a lot, you know, and I working in advocacy and stuff like that. You work with groups of people and they get caught up in the moment, and it's all feel good talk. We're going to do this and we're going to do that. Nothing's going to stop us. And we're going to lead, you know, the charge and yada, yada, yada. And next thing you know, like you said, they reach a point where they don't know where to go with it. They've talked it and it's easy to talk it, but now you got to put it to action. And that's the story.
All those people that you're going to need to, you know, especially if you're talking about advocacy, if you're talking about trying to get a piece of legislation enacted, whatever, you're going to need a lot of those people that you just flamed, if you will, to support you one way or another, or to perhaps not oppose you so strongly, you know.
Oh yeah,
because they may look at what you're trying to pass and say, well, this looks like it'll pass. You know, this doesn't make sense for me to oppose it, you know, but the next thing he comes up with, I'm going to oppose him. So it's good to build bridges, if you will, and try to garner some support, or at least have a conversation with somebody. So maybe they won't oppose you so strongly at times.
Oh yeah.
You know,
yeah. You just gotta be careful about it, because that's how, you know, people get too involved or too entrenched and they start losing their own way. You know, you don't want to lose your integrity in it either, where you're making decisions you wouldn't normally make because you're trying to get this bill through, but yet you're sinking everybody on this other guy's bill, you know?
Right. Exactly. You know, and you got people who run for public office and think, oh, well, you know, Trump, he called everybody a bunch of names and went after people. That's what I have to do. And whenever you talk about, you know, local politics, state level stuff, you know, all of a sudden the pool is a lot smaller. Now, all of a sudden, if you get elected, you're going to have to swim in that pool. And everybody that you're swimming with, you called a name at one point or another or lied about. You know, so you want to get something done. Good luck. I mean, you have no coalition. You have nobody on your side. So you may be the best thing, you know, and I hate to say this, but the best thing since sliced bread. But guess what? If you can't put another piece of bread together, you're only one piece of bread. You know, sorry, you're not a sandwich.
Yeah.
You know, you need meat. You need all the things that build that sandwich. You need another piece of bread. You know, so that's where the coalition building comes into play. So you get a lot of these new people that came out and run for office. You know, they forgot it. They didn't know about that. They didn't care to do that research. They just thought, I'll show up, I'll wear the right costume, you know, I'll look the part, I'll say the right thing, or I'll flame this person or that person, because that's what people want to hear right now. But I have nothing behind it, you know. And then a lot of people like this, they'll win public office, but there's nothing behind it, and you'll suffer for however long they're in office because they'll not be able to get anything done.
Right. There's no way to reconcile it. You're in trouble.
Right. Absolutely. And in seats that are generally 4-year seats, you know, good luck. You're going to have that person in there, and then there's no mechanism to force them to do anything other than, you know, if they don't. Some states have it where if they don't show up on so many times in a year, they can be recalled or kicked out of office, but most don't.
Yeah, no, I understand what you mean, man, because I've always been a loudmouth about the FMCSA.
Right.
Well, I kind of think I made a name for myself at the FMCSA. So there's been times when things didn't happen that should have happened, or it's hard to explain the details. But when you're the one who gets a committee created, and you're on that committee, but for some reason you're removed from that committee, you know you did something wrong somewhere. You just don't know what it is.
Yeah.
And I know it's because I say what I say. I'm honest. And I just believe, like I said earlier about him, you know, it's embarrassing when the president has to write an executive order.
Yeah,
I gets back to them. And so now there's like, well, John's not our friend. So when it comes time to sit down and talk and stuff like that behind the scenes, they don't want, no.
Yep, absolutely. Because you got to think about it. Whenever you get on these prestigious committees and these different assignments, especially if there's a presidential appointment involved, how many people want to give that up? You know, however long it is, if it's, you know, a few years, you know, however long some of these appointments are. I mean, it's prestigious for you. You know what I mean?
Yep.
People love that.
For a lot of people's career building. I've seen so many people that are acting administrator of the FMCSA. And when they come out of that, man, they've got jobs at autonomous vehicle companies.
Yeah.
Good jobs, you know, government relations jobs and things like that. But these are good paying jobs. And So it's career building for them.
Yep, you got it. That's for sure.
And sometimes it's at the expense of the American people, unfortunately. But
yep, you got it. So that's the way it goes. Sadly.
Yeah. No, but yep, I like to rail. I've gone to their Facebook page and railed on them. I don't do it anymore, but I used to years ago. And let them know where they stand with me anyway. I mean,
right.
I just don't. I'm not sacrificing my values. I'm not gonna. I'm gonna sit there and kowtow to them when they're supposed to be the public servant. I'm not gonna kowtow to them and lie about them that they're doing such a great job and they're phenomenal, boost their egos. Like when Ann Farrell got kicked out, and I say kicked out of the FMCSA as administrator because of her nonsense and the things she's done. Will come to the point that organizations were calling for her resignation, but when she decides to resign, and you figure it's a forced resignation, there's Obama and there's all these people. Well, she did a terrific job and she was really an awesome, it's all these accolades. It's like she stunk at it. She was the worst.
Right. Just because she or anybody presented themselves in a certain way to you doesn't mean that they're doing a good job.
Well, no, it's just all about the administration saving face, right? They appointed somebody that was garbage.
Right.
She came in she looked like she was a good candidate when she came in, but then she just got into this whole leftist, everybody waving a picture of their dead child or something. And they were plucking at her heartstrings and she was buying into their nonsense. And I've caught her on national television, trash talking truck drivers. She's not supposed to be doing stuff like that. She's not supposed to be demonizing truck drivers in the country. It's one thing to talk about how you're going to regulate them and make sure that they're not being abused and make sure, they don't follow through with a lot of the protocols within the agency. They're supposed to regulate for antitrust. They're supposed to regulate for a lot of things they don't regulate for that could impact safety in other ways. But they don't do that part. Everything's always just about hours of service. And the biggest cry in the industry for regulations is hours of service because it's ineffectual, it doesn't work, and then they force you to use an electronic logging device, which exasperates the circumstance. And then that exasperates the parking issues. But they don't want to hear that. That's the primary focus is. And then they get audited by the OIG, who's saying that because of the programs and stuff, they got grant programs where states enforce their regulations and things like that. But they haven't been following up with the states, making sure that things been getting done and the effectiveness of how things have been getting done, and if it's actually being effective at all or what's going on. They're totally behind on it. In other words, they're just incompetent.
Right. I read you. Yep, absolutely. I say that the less legislation, the better. The less regulation. I think we're be on the right track.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I know when I'm tired. Todd knows when he's tired. You don't need some government employee to dictate hours to you and tell you when you need to shut down and not shut down and take a rest. When you're tired, you know how to manage your sleep and manage your time to work and so on and so forth. You don't need government officials trying to operate a clock on you and having you shutting down when you're rested and allowed to run when you're tired. It's ridiculous.
Yep, I agree. 100%. Yeah. Who knows better than the individual?
Mm-hmm.
And of course you would have in place of people who can't seem to be, manage themselves, and you would have rules in place for people like that,
Well, Congress is to blame in this too, aren't they? I mean, they delegate their authority to these agencies and then they allow them to run amok. And every time they try to challenge the agencies actually fight back. It's like, wait a minute. The agencies are there to serve we the people, and we the people are represented by Congress, and they're having authority on their own to operate as they see fit.
Right.
And then they pull this guidance crap. What is that? So now you're going to arbitrarily just give us guidance and change the meaning of the regulations you created?
Yep. That's the way it is, right? It's a moving goalpost. If you just redefine words, all of a sudden legislation has new meaning, right? Essentially.
Yeah. Or they just give guidance and, well, if you're doing it like this, you won't be bothered. Well, this is dictatorship. We need to know where we stand. And if you guys keep arbitrarily changing everything, then people are confused anymore. They don't know where they stand.
Yeah. Do it this way. It's like crossing the road. It's like, okay, I can cross the road. Yeah, you can freely cross the road. However, we won't mess with you if you cross it this way. Like, all of a sudden it's like, but I can still freely cross the road. Absolutely you can, but you can only do it this way. So I'm not really free to cross the road unless I do it their way. So I'm really not free. So that's kind of
Right.
the way I look
Yeah.
at it. They're gonna regulate how I cross the road, but tell me I'm free to cross the
Well,
road.
well, wait a minute, Todd. They've had further discussions on the matter now. They decide you can't cross diagonally. You can only cross straight across. But 3 months later, no, wait, you have to cross diagonally the opposite direction now because we
Right.
decided that's safer now. They don't know what they're talking about.
Every third step must be a skip or something. Well,
Yeah, every
I
third
don't,
step.
I don't know. Yeah.
Hop to the loo, man. You got to hop to the loo while you're going across.
Right. Well, Fox News is, and I guess CNN asked him, but Chuck Schumer, he has a 17% approval rating. And he was asked, basically if his approval rating is going to hurt the party, if he's going to step down or anything like that. Kind of just shrugged it off and says, polls come and polls go. That's all he said. Like, here's the thing. You should probably step out of the way at this point. I mean, you've done more harm, not only to your party, but to this nation and to New York than you ever done to help anybody. I mean, come on.
He's self-serving.
Right. Give somebody else a shot at it, even if it's going to be a Democrat. Maybe they're going to have some fresher ideas, or maybe they're going to realize that doing what the party has done for the past number of years and decades, it doesn't work. And maybe they need to move in a more moderate direction, more toward the middle of the road, which seems to be where a number of younger Democrats are actually moving toward. They're not becoming a Republican, some of them, but they're moving more toward the middle of the road. That's what we're seeing across the country.
Yeah.
So that's interesting to see that reports coming out. So some of the younger Democrats are becoming more moderate, middle of the road. That's interesting to see that. Especially how psychotic the left has went. Through education, through colleges, universities, etc., through the media, through social media, through movies, television, whatever, pop culture. To see that younger people that's not having as big as effect as it has in recent decades. Interesting.
Yeah. What is this we were talking about Ukraine and Russia earlier, but a day ago they were talking about Russia threatens NATO with nuke strikes. You hear about this?
Yeah. Did not see that. I know that they've talked about it a number of times in recent years.
Yeah, I don't know if this is. It's hard to get into these types of articles because you don't know if this is just fluff and garbage and they're just trying to make something out of nothing or.
Right. Where are you finding that at?
That's on cf.org.
Okay, gotcha.
It was released a day ago. What's this first speaking of articles here. America First Legal has filed a state bar complaint against New York Attorney General Letitia James over her alleged mortgage fraud. So I guess it's going forward.
Interesting.
The complaint was filed in New York on Thursday, 10 days after U.S. Federal Housing Finance Agency Director William J. Poltz sent a criminal referral to the Justice Department. So, yeah, I guess it's going to move forward, and it's going to be nice to see her facing consequences of things that Trump was falsely accused of.
Good deal. Love it. So I guess J.D. Vance, the vice president, was in India recently, and India's Modi, the prime minister, gives army freedom to act as tension rise with Pakistan after deadly terror attack. Pakistani minister claims India intends carrying out a military action against his country in the next 24 to 36 hours. So talk about nuclear arms. India and Pakistan are both nuclear armed nations. So tensions are very high, and then they're on a. They would have no problem using nukes against one another for sure.
That actually brings up a point of issue with the trade wars. And I don't know if you recall it or not, but we've had at the end of the Clinton administration, going into the Bush administration, we had the breakdown of Microsoft. We had some sort of economic declines. But we've had a pretty strong economy in the 1990s. A lot had to do with bringing, like what Trump wants to do, bringing manufacturing jobs back home, which we did in the 1990s. And we really experienced an economic boom where labor rates went up because of the shortage of labor in this country. It was some pretty darn good times. And I remember when Bush was going into office, because of this, you started hearing Pakistan and India threaten nuclear holocaust on each other.
Right.
Suddenly we were outsourcing again. They got quiet. Everything went good for them. And basically we gave our work out again and basically cut ourselves short. So you think maybe we might be suffering some of that again? Like you're just now bringing this up about Pakistan and India. You think maybe this trade war might actually usher on some of that? Or do you think that more of the work will go from China to places like India and Pakistan instead of coming to the United States?
Right. Yeah, it's very possible. It could flow that way versus coming this way. Very
I know
true.
Trump wants to bring industry back to the United States. We're not
Right.
getting it all. There's just no way
No.
we're getting it all.
Oh no, you're not going to get all of it. No, I mean it's too enticing to send work elsewhere, especially you wouldn't want to put all your eggs in one basket, especially in a political climate in the U.S. as tumultuous as it is, right?
Yeah.
Because you never know what's going to happen in less than 4 years now. You could have a Democrat in there. I hope not. That could change the dynamic, or a Republican who's not all about MAGA. That changes things, right?
Yep, absolutely. Well, the biggest thing is we need to be a self-sustaining nation again. I
Right.
mean,
I agree.
Somebody brought it up. Wasn't it Holt? I think on one of Chris's channels brought it up about how much pharmaceuticals are made in China. And so I guess it is about 90% of pharmaceuticals that have been made in China. So we're relying on China for our pharmaceuticals and stuff.
Right.
That's ridiculousness. We got to be able to take care of our sick people. We can't have a nation cutting us off or cutting us short or
Right.
like the chips. We had to create the CHIPS Act because of our dependency on China to make chips for cars that we had parked over here because we had no chips. We couldn't sell them.
Yep. Well, you sure that wasn't talking about like chips like Doritos, stuff like that, or
No, it was definitely computer
snacks,
chips.
some snacks and things like that.
But
I hear
you
there's
ever
gonna
figure
be
out how to run a car on Doritos, Todd? You let me know.
all right, I'll figure it out. Yeah,
I'm going to start investing into Doritos.
The CHIPS Act. Yeah, so you got some wafers and some other things you could probably. They're going to legislate on everything: potato chips, cookies, miniature cookies, cupcakes, the whole 9 yards. I mean, it's too much. Leave the desserts alone, Congress. All right. That's my bit for the day. Sorry.
Yeah. So no, I mean, being self-sustaining as a nation might be good. I seen that. It's kind of funny. I've seen some people, the Trump haters going, Trump back down from China. China's winning in this trade wars and stuff like that. But now you're seeing articles that China's backing down from Trump.
Yeah.
They
Also,
decided that they needed certain things like what was it, ethane or something like that, some sort of chemical that they produce a lot of stuff out of, and they realized, we get 50% of that product from the United States. We can't tariff that.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. So, speaking of Schumer, he apparently held a little press conference of his own. He said Trump's first 100 days can be defined with one big F word, basically one utterance. And of course, he went on to define that F word as actually failure, not the one we're thinking of. So, there you go.
Yeah, I didn't think it was the big F word, but
no. So he gives it an F. We give it an A minus. So
Schumer wouldn't know what success is if it hit him in the face.
No, of course not. TJ gave him an A minus too, by the way.
Oh, did she?
Yeah, she gave him an A minus.
Awesome.
Good deal.
She knows.
So so we got about 10 minutes left of the show. Again, I just want to bring up the Colonel Chris White. For those who watch for Colonel Chris White, he's not here. He's in South Africa. So if you are from South Africa, figure out where he's at and go say hello, or be one of the random people that spots him. Be like, hey, are you the Colonel? Or go up to him and be like, hey, Todd and John did a great show last night. Yeah, it was great without you. Stay over here for a little bit longer. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, right.
Nah, but that would be good.
The show always takes on a whole different vibe when Chris is here.
Well, absolutely. But you got to think about it. He's going on how many hours of broadcast, and then he comes on our show. He's still going 100 miles an hour.
Well, I was trying to think, what can we do about that? Because Wednesdays are bad for him. But God, I hate to give up Wednesday nights because it seems like a good time slot. So.
Right, it is a good time slot.
Yeah, I would like to be able to kind of find a better time slot where he's not, because when we first started doing this, his time slot, his day was open, his schedule was open, but it seems like everybody wants to schedule everything with him on a Wednesday.
Right. Well, Wednesday works for me because, I usually have things on Thursday, Fridays, and other days, Mondays, so Wednesday will work for me. But we could figure that out if something were to need to be worked out in the future for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
I don't know why that, or maybe his work schedule will kind of start changing again, and things will work out that way. I don't know.
Right.
I just kind of feel bad that happened to him. Like I said, when we picked the slot, it was an open slot for everybody.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah, I love doing the show. I mean, I hope we can continue it, for the foreseeable future. I don't imagine we're looking to leave anytime soon, but maybe figure out a way to revamp it a little bit. Breathe new life into it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe a guest every other show. Maybe we put that a policy, or maybe we say, hey, who's going to get the guest next week? One of us will be tasked with trying to get a guest.
Yeah, sometimes that's not difficult. Sometimes
Yeah.
that can be a lot of work, but we need somebody to do it for us.
Right. Well, absolutely.
We need a scheduler, Todd, for one
Yeah.
show.
Right. For once a week. Right. Yeah. I think we're all right though. But I love the way the way it's set up, because we don't have segments that we have to do. It's like, oh, we gotta. Oh, it's not. It's 8:15. We got to hit this segment. It's 8:30. We got to do this bit. I like the free flowing discussion. But but at the same time, it allows some of us not to read up on some stuff at the time. So I'm finding myself occasionally, looking through whatever's going on, just as we're sitting here talking.
Yeah, I get so busy. I'm like you. I just pretty much I'm trying to go off things I remember through the week and what I've read, and trying to keep up during the week.
Right.
But you know what they say: put a hot mic in front of somebody, and man, they'll shut right up.
Yeah.
You did start forgetting what the topics were that you wanted to discuss.
Right. Well, May 12th, I'm looking over here whenever we started the show, the actual date, May 12th is the anniversary. May 12th, 2021, we started the show.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Is that a Wednesday by any chance?
I think it was a Wednesday. I can't remember. Did we start on a Wednesday?
No, I'm talking about May 12th this year.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I don't know. I can't remember. What day did we start Wednesdays, or just... I can't remember.
We started Wednesdays from the very beginning. Podcasting, yeah.
Right. Yeah, okay. I couldn't remember.
Yeah. This has always been our time slot, Wednesdays at 7 p.m.
Right. Well, let's see. What is May 12th? Let's see. You got your calendar open? When is May 12th?
Oh, I got a new phone, man. It's almost set up the same. It's just... Oh, you got somebody there?
Yeah, I got some. Yeah, it's a Monday. Oh, well.
Oh, you had somebody looking for you.
Yeah.
Whoa, Todd's got an assistant in the studio.
No. So May 12th is a Monday. So that 14th, we can have a little anniversary show, something like that. That'd be good.
Yeah.
A little anniversary show.
Do something.
Yeah, and we can promote it on social media or something like that. Maybe that'll be interesting. Yeah, we could do that. Maybe come up with a new a new idea, where we're going to try to bring a guest at least every other week, every other show.
Yeah, something like that. It's good to have the guest on
every other show.
Something different.
And what we should do is announce that we're going to do open lines. Anytime anybody wants to call in,
we do that now.
I know.
Where was our callers? Where were you people?
We don't advertise it.
No, we don't. When we free flow, we just kind of free flow. We don't take those pauses. I should create some ads and some spots.
I know we've got to remind ourselves to do station IDs. And I know it's not necessarily mandatory by law these days. I don't know what the rules are there. I know they have to do the top and bottom of the hour. I don't think they have to do it in the middle of the hour these days, right? I don't know.
I don't
think so.
know. I know George always tells me, he says, Johnny, it's horrible. It's horrible. If people don't know who they're listening to or what they're listening to, it's irritating, and they're going to want to just leave. You got to let them know, ladies and gentlemen, you listen to Common Sense Conservatives, and it just kind of gives them an idea. Oh, okay, now I know who they are, and it's kind of promoting it away. But yeah, we get free flowing, and things get to be moving along, and people are talking. It's hard to pop in there and just kind of throw in a quick, station identification.
Well, and so we're almost 4 years into it. So I think maybe that's something we're going to have to focus on. Maybe make sure we do our station IDs in the middle of the hour on a regular, and maybe try to nail down a guest every other show. So that way, and of course, announce the phone number. Talk about that. Let everybody know if you want to. Yeah, if you want to call in, here's the number. We got to do that.
I got stuff where I got all these interesting little
I see
scroll at the bottom stuff.
I see.
I just got to use it.
Yeah, start using it.
Yeah. I should rebuild the whole background or the whole image and stuff.
Right.
I just like I said, I'm so busy. I got so much stuff to do. It's hard to prioritize what I got to change and stuff as far as the social media aspect goes here.
Right.
But yeah, there's
Absolutely.
things we can do with it. Spruce things up, change things around, kind of give it a new look. It's not bad. I mean, we did have the backgrounds. I didn't use this one today because it doesn't work well with just two of us, but
Right. Yeah, that works well with three people. The way it'll. Yeah, I'm sure. I'll have somebody do a new background, a birthday background for us.
Birthday.
It'll say that instead of the 200 show, it'll say happy birthday or something. I don't know. We won't reinvent the wheel too much.
200 show. Did we do? No, we did. The 200.
We've already done a 200
Wasn't that
show.
the
Yeah,
200?
couple months ago. Yeah. Yeah, that's the 200
Yeah,
show.
you can't see it, but
yeah, for the people on the radio, he's going through the different backgrounds that he has available as we're sitting here watching. So the people who are watching it are seeing different backgrounds scroll through as this race car driver zips by the window there in Nashua.
Because everybody wants to be heard on WSMN.
Yeah, and I dare say they probably have the radio on the station as they speed by.
Yeah, right. Let's see if we can hear ourselves, man.
I heard my car on the radio. Did you hear me honk? Did you hear me rev my engine?
That's not an impossibility. I mean,
right?
That's one way to do it. It's kind of like, when people are I mean, that live sign should be on. It's lit up, so yeah, it's like the major outlets and stuff when they do it on the street level. You get all the people lining up in the window behind them because they want their faces on national television.
Oh yeah.
They hold up a sign.
Right? Yep.
F Joe Biden.
All right. Failure Joe Biden. That's what that
means. Failure Joe Biden. The big F.
Yeah. Big F. Yeah, you got a big F. F minus. Right? Don't bother showing up.
The Let's Go Brandon signs.
Yep.
On ABC.
Yeah,
the Rock channel.
Yeah, that was so funny how that took off. It was at the end of a NASCAR. I think it was just a truck race, and she was interviewing the driver, and his name was Brandon. He just won the race or whatever, and then they're like chanting, F Joe Biden, and then she's like, oh, they're chanting Let's Go Brandon, because she's trying to cover it up on air because he's live, and then you can hear F Joe Biden. Of course, they're saying the real word, and she goes, yeah, back there they're cheering for you, saying Let's Go Brandon, and I'm like, oh, I love it. How that one little thing she did became just a meme, became a line, became a bumper sticker, how much money was made off of that, and of course she didn't see a penny of it.
Yeah, right. She got
how funny is that?
Yeah, but I thought it was funny that one guy was interviewing. For some reason, they gave some guy an interview with Joe. He was like talking to him. I think it was I don't know if it was on the phone or like televised or what it was. But there's Jill and Joe Biden sit there, and the guy ends it with, "Oh, by the way, let's go, Brandon." And he jumps up, pumps his fist, go, "Yeah, let's go, Brandon." I'm like, sit out. I almost felt bad for him, but it's Joe Biden. How can you feel bad?
Let's
for
go,
him, right?
Brandon. Let's go, Brandon. All right, we got about 2 minutes left, maybe.
Yeah, we got about 1 minute. 1 minute left, Todd. What can we cover in 1 minute?
Oh, I don't know. We'll be back next week, 7 to 9 Eastern, right here, WSM 1590 AM and 95.3 FM. Right? Did I get it right?
Yeah, 95.3 FM on your FM dial.
Right, absolutely. Well, we got some local stations here, 92.9 and 92.3, that does talk radio as well. So whenever I drive across when I drive around locally, it's 92.9, but whenever I drive through Knoxville and going that way, 92.3 is what I tune in. So sometimes when I do the call signs, I'm like, okay, don't use those. I've done it once before here, so I always have to catch myself.
Yeah, I can see that. Chris did it because he used to do radio in college or something, and he would give the wrong call signs.
Yeah, well, he got in a habit of it, right? So
yeah, he was basically just
ingrained.
Ingrained,
yeah. So all right, folks, there we go.
Yeah, man, just doing the final countdown. There's nothing we can get into. We just got a matter of seconds here, and we're going to be let off, ladies and gentlemen. But we appreciate y'all listening to us here at WSMN and at the Common Sense Conservatives, and we look forward to doing this again next week with you. And until then, have yourself a good week. Continue to listen to WSMN and join us again.